All right, today we're going to learn about self-advocacy for children with hearing loss. I am Carrie Bailey. I'm the program coordinator for Illinois Guide by Your Side. So, it takes a village to raise a child. One thing that families may not realize is that self-advocacy development begins at a very early stage in the child's life, and that it requires the development of strong self-esteem and confidence. If they're not confident and they don't feel like they have anything to bring to the table, then they won't be able to speak up when it's time for them. They're first modeled by parents, caregivers, and teachers. We are all role models to them. They do not pick this up from their peers typically. And they have to understand the parameters of hearing loss. Everyone that works with a child has to understand that that's an important piece of that child and their person. So what is self-advocacy? This is skills that really children need even before they start working on socialization. We're also going to discuss the spread of their advocacy skills into their IEP process because, after all, the IEP is all about that child, that individual. And in bringing them and involving them, again, builds their self-worth and buy-in of their IEP. So we're going to touch on who is responsible and also how is it done. So what is self-advocacy? It's the way someone is able to describe their needs. As simple as, can I have ketchup? Can you turn that up? To what they really need, can you please face me when you talk to me? The ability to know how to advocate what is socially appropriate, what vocabulary they need, but first, do they know what their needs are at all? A lot of times, I realize that I automatically do things to make it a better listening environment for my son when, I should take the time to point out that I turn on closed captioning and that I turn down background noise so that he will learn that those are key factors for him to ask when I'm not there to do it for him, or if it's just not automatically done in our household, if he goes to someone else's home or sleeps over at a friend. The ability to know how to advocate, and then finally making a decision and then living with those results of that decision or action. And they might be good decisions, they might not, but it's something that we have to do. We have to loosen the reins and let them fly. So who is responsible? Well, it starts with you. Make sure you give strategies at home for a better listening environment, making sure, again, that you point those out to your child. We have a great room in our home, and unfortunately that means that the kitchen and the living room kind of all blend together, and our dishwasher isn't exactly the quietest thing on the block. So making sure that the dishwasher isn't going while hanging in the room or hanging out or watching TV. Engage your family in the process. Don't let siblings do it because it's easier or quicker for them to do it. Let your child have their own voice as well. Let them order their Happy Meals and be patient and acknowledge their participation. Again, the more they do it, the more comfortable they begin to feel and the more ready they're able to do it on their own. I can tell you many times where I let Jack run into the store to get something, just a quick 7-Eleven, go get a gallon of milk, and I wonder, how is it going in there? Is he able to understand what the cashier is asking? Is he giving him the correct amount of money? I mean, some things that are not hearing loss related to all the things that are hearing loss related. So, but I have to let him do those things. He's not going to be on his own and asking me to buy milk for him. Share with the skills, or share with the school what skills you're working on and what tools you are using to help your child achieve these skills. Work together with the school, but don't expect the school to do it all. There's only so much time in a day, and if you can get them to work on some of the same things, or if you can be on the same page, or at least about one key advocacy skills, then, that's great. Work on that, build on that, and move on. And then your child, let them try it on their own. If someone's asking them a question, let them reply. This is the hardest thing, I think, as a parent to do, because it's, again, quicker and easier for you to do it, but then it also comes to that point, do they understand my child? Was there a communication breakdown? And then if there was a misunderstanding, how many times do you let them try to clarify and clean it up without there being any level of frustration or maybe even embarrassment? And, stressing to your child, if they didn't hear or understand it, let them take the next step, such as, I didn't understand you, can you tell me again? Those are powerful words, one that they will need throughout their lifetime. So where do you start? You start with your child. Believe in their abilities and believe that the child that you have now, your baby that you have now, can do anything. If you believe it, they will too. Self-care. From the beginning stages of do you know how to dress yourself to later of what do they do when they're sick. Again, thinking about down the road when they're on their own, if they get sick, do they know how to tend to themselves, and do they know what doctor to call? Once they're of age and they can do those skills on their own, let them have a piece of that. In the community, if they utilize an interpreter, do they know how to use one? Do they know when to request one? Educating the public, from ordering a menu to handling an appointment of their own, whether it's with a doctor or a legal appointment, or maybe even trying to get a new job. School. What happens when they participate in after-school activities? When they're on the bus with other students? Is it dark out? Are the lights off? Are they basically cut off because they can't have an environment to communicate in? How do they handle that? Do they know that they can say something and possibly make a change? Their schedule. Yes, one day they will be waking up on their own. What tools do they need? And then, letting them, again, see the consequences of their actions. So they may have that 8-page report that they, have to do, but they really want to see the new blockbuster movie, so when their friends talk about it, they know what's going on. You have to let them handle it, teach them to live and learn from their actions. Money, again, from paying for that milk or the pack of gum to their first job, balancing a checkbook, the skills, teaching them and how to save and when to spend and how to spend. Relationship choices. This is hard because this can go as simple as friends to, boyfriends and girlfriends down the line. Think about your relationships and how many did you explore before you found that one true friend or your significant other. Relationships take time to find, build, and keep. Share with your child that it wasn't easy for you either. And, what tools you used or your experiences, so that if there's a breakdown or a letdown or, a moment where it's a bump in the road, they know that you'll be there for them, but they know that it's not because of them and that they're not alone. And again, teaching your kids to speak out, even if it's you, not to argue about they want 5 more minutes with the PlayStation, but maybe teaching them to argue with a purpose. Principles of good choice making. You may feel like you know how to make good choices for your kids, but do they? Expose your child to different people or viewpoints, careers, and role models. Let them ask the questions that are important to them. Sometimes you might be happily surprised what comes to their mind or their take on a situation. What are the goals, dreams, and values you have for your child? By doing what they want to do or how they want to do it, does it represent their goals and values? Making sure that you model those behaviors for your child as well. thinking of people in important positions such as the president of performance. For instance, Justin Bieber wouldn't go up to somebody at the Grammys and give them a wedgie. It just doesn't work. That would probably reflect bad on him. Teaching your children to kind of think of the whole situation and not just the moment. For instance, my son last year decided that it would be a great time at an event where he was wearing a guide by your side shirt to pop an arch of balloons. Not thinking that, people could clearly see who he was with from his t-shirt, and that maybe they didn't want their arch of balloons that they probably paid good money for. Pop! But do you think he, thought of that? No, he was probably thinking about the good time of the balloons and the fun of the popping. In this case, he has to learn and have consequences for those actions and realize that probably wasn't such a wise move. Teens with hearing loss often feel that they aren't prepared for the difficulties of life in college, the work world, or even encouraged to be a part of the IEP team planning, especially because decisions that are made for them, they won't have as much buy-in. We'll talk a little bit more about role models and the importance of learning from others who also have a hearing loss. But basically, in the end, we need to loosen the reins, give them opportunities to make decisions. And decisions at any age, there's always an opportunity to start small, start somewhere, and build upon that. And obviously, I'm not saying let's start driving on the highway during rush hour, for practice, but, making sure that it's small, safe, wise choices. So, advocacy tips to help prepare your child for the IEP, to get them involved and realize that they should be part of what's happening to them in their school and take pride in what they're doing. So we're going to explore how to get them involved and the benefits of why to get them involved. So your child's involvement in the IEP helps them build self-advocacy skills and self-esteem. It gives your child some control over their education. They build important social and conversational skills. They understand the flow of conversation. Many children with a hearing loss I've come across, and speaking from experience with my son, he tends to control the conversation because it's easier for him to manage what he has to hear. And if he's the one talking, then there's nothing to listen to, so there's nothing he'll miss out on. So understanding that there's give and take back and forth in a conversation. Teach the process of decision-making, goal-setting, and achievement. The IEP is all about your child. They're never too young to participate and start the path to an increased role in its development and implementation. When your child participates, you can see a marked increase in many important social skills for your child and that they will need throughout their life. So, some strategies or things to think about for kids of all ages to take part of the IEP, whether it's the preparation or being at the actual meeting. So we start off with some very basic things that elementary students can even handle. And feedback from pilot studies that were out there of involving children in the IEP process show that they gain confidence and self-awareness and self-advocacy skills. So a couple ways that children can be involved as part of the IEP. They can create presentations, write thank you notes to the attendees. They can introduce their family members or others at the meeting. Perhaps they maybe can't attend the meeting, but you can help them photocopies. You definitely want for them to understand what an IEP is all about, even just the term IEP. You can have them read through last year's IEP and have them write up what their thoughts are ahead of time. So again, they're prepared and have their thoughts in order. They can always create a PowerPoint or a personal profile, and we'll go over the personal profile in a little bit. And you can have a pre-meeting with your child so that you're all on the same page. So nothing's missaid at an IEP, and there's no misunderstandings. And maybe your child feels one way, and you don't know that, and you don't want to be surprised at the IEP. Some other ways, they can provide work samples. They can create an All About Me notebook or folder. These All About Me folders are great because they follow them through to middle school, so, young. But the thing is that information can be used to help them transition. And then they could start a new folder or notebook in middle school that'll follow into high school where, again, the information can help them transition. And then high school students can create an I'm Determined notebook that contains test scores, IEPs, work samples, accommodations, transition plans, basically a student notebook that they take ownership of. They can look up the necessary information, such as their standard of living scores and so forth. And all of these tools are available in worksheets, PowerPoints, and many other ways at the website that's listed at the bottom of the page. The child can also make a list of their strengths and weaknesses. If they're not going to do an All About Me folder, this is something else that they can do. They can help write the PLOP, or now it's known as the PLAP. The PLOP was the present level of performance, and now the PLAP stands for present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. They can present their transition plan, or they can present or pass out the IEP at a glance to the teachers and explain their classroom needs. And again, the Undetermined website is a great tool. So talking a little bit more about the personal profile, it's a list of what tools the student needs in order to be successful, or, what tools could help them. And the list of these suggestions here were actually from teens, and these suggestions are: make sure that I can see the teacher. Repeat what other students say, their questions, their answers, sidebars, comments, things that might be important and help me keep up with the flow of the conversation. Point to the student that was speaking so I can look at them and lip read. Use captioning for videos and movies. Let me sit where I can hear best. Wear the FM microphone and not to the bathroom, please. Write down assignments on the board and use an outline or note so I can follow, so I'm not completely lost in the dark. I have an idea of where we were and where we're going. And here are some other things that teens have shared that make it hard for them to learn. Talking to the board so they can't see their face. Noisy classrooms, when a teacher or student talks too quietly. If there's open discussions within the classroom that make it hard to follow and hard to understand. Again, not using FM or not having captions on videos or DVDs. So think about these tips. Are these things that, you already point out to your child? Are these things that your child already mentions? Do you do some of these things with your child in your own environment? Have you seen some of these things happen? And if so, what did you do to facilitate improvement, or what did your child do? And kind of put those in your memory bank so that you can share those with other families down the line. Remember that this all begins with proper role modeling. When your child is young, you are the voice. So at ballet class, did you tell the instructor how they can help to create a successful learning environment for your child? So, thinking about those things and realizing that first it's a model of you do it, you show it, then a model of we'll do it together, and then the model of you do it. Okay, it's your turn to advocate and speak for yourself. When your child feels some control, the responsibility shifts from you or the teacher to the student's responsibility. And because it is their responsibility and They know their goals. They have a vested interest in achieving them. And then inappropriate behaviors may decrease because they feel empowered and they're ready to move on and show their success from the things that they have planned. And, as far as inappropriate behaviors, those associated with, like, loss of control or frustration, for example, there have been stories shared that students who don't like the accommodations of having tests read to them may resist leaving the classroom for testing because they don't want to look any different or have to be pulled away from the rest of the group. So they may suddenly become sick at testing time because, oh, that's easier. Now I got out of not having the test read to me, and I didn't have to tell anyone how I felt. So in the end, we all just want, that spot, the successful, well-adjusted kid. And remember that they're looking out for themselves after they graduate. They don't have a list, or a plan listing accommodations, and no one really gets a sneak peek at their individual needs. We don't quite know where they're going to go after they're graduating. So it's up to them to know how to advocate for themselves and to look out and try to get those needs met on their own. Any questions? All right, I'm going to stop the recording.